So here's a question I see popping up a lot, and I'm just going to give you my perspective and opinion on it, just because that's kind of what I do here. A lot of people are wondering what is really considered a decent retirement monthly income. And I say that way because really it's kind of perspective, right? If you live in West Virginia, which is the cheapest state to live in, according to the numbers and the stats, as far as cost of living goes and affordable health care and et cetera, you can live like a king maybe for $30,000 a year. That's only $2,500 a month, give or take. However, if you live in Hawaii, you're going to need, which is the most expensive state to live in retirement, you're going to need substantially more. So coming up with an income number that would be considered good income in retirement is really based on what's your cost of living, what state are you living in, and then of course, where were you prior to that? What was your income level when you worked? So one of the gauges that I've found that seems to be similar with a lot of folks is that to aim for 80% of your working income as a retirement income, as a number to start with. So I made this comment before on a previous video that got a lot of good and bad responses, because I said living on a modest income of $5,000 a month. And a lot of people's like, holy crap, I can do it. I live on this and I live on that. Well, and I understand that. However, $60,000 a year based on my current income level is very modest. Not that I make a lot of money, but I make double that on average a year. So to go from 120 down to 60 to me feels very modest. And it would take an adjustment if I was barely living within my means. Luckily, I don't do that. And hopefully you're not either. Don't just get by, even now as you're working, unless you're doing just get by because you're saving every extra dime, right? Don't financially tax yourself with expenses to the point you can barely survive. You can't, that's not going to lead to a good retirement, because if you don't have the financial maturity now while you're working to get rid of your debts and eliminate these silly things that we waste money on, it's not going to get any better with retirement. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And that goes with, if you're lazy with your diet, you're going to be lazy with your money. You're going to be lazy with your work habits. That just seems to be the way everything clicks together. So, but here's some goalposts to work with, and I would suggest trying using this. The median right now is somewhere between 42 and 6,200, depending on if you're single or married. If you, as a couple, made $180,000, aim for 80% of that in the retirement income, one way or the other. Now, it doesn't mean it has to be that. If your expenses are low and you live in West Virginia, you're going to have a lot of money that you don't need to have. If you are going to live in Hawaii, though, and you only have a monthly income of $5,000, you're not going to make it unless you're going to live in a tent or live with 100 other people in a compound. You've got to gauge what you need and what you consider a good income based on what your needs are now and will be in retirement, and what your cost of living and expenses are going to be. But that's just to give you a gauge and something to work on, and an idea to think about. I also want to point out to this. This is not a competition, folks. How you retire is completely on you. If you want to retire, I know people that are the richest people in the graveyard, and I know people that are the poorest and happiest people that work and are glad to do it into their 70s, because they want to feel like they have purpose and they have something to drive them every day to get up. Okay? It's not a competition that I can live on $1,500 a month forever. Great. I don't want to live that cheaply, but I want to live frugally and maintain a standard of living that I'm used to within reason. And that can go a long ways based on how you choose to live your life now and how you choose to live your life when you retire full time. That's why I say I'm never going to probably be full-time retired, because I enjoy doing things. So I will find something to keep busy and to give me some purpose. And that's good for everybody. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.